بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So tonight I'd like to ponder a question about a statement in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Baqarah, in a verse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says something kind of curious. And I think a lot of us have maybe heard the verse or recited it, or at least know its meaning or have heard the story, but we never really stop to think about it. So this is in the last third of Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is relating the story of Talut and Jalut. So in this story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that after Musa alayhi salam and Harun, his brother, passed away, they were finally delivered out of out of purgatory, that they were forced into the desert for 40 years to wander. Musa alayhi salam passed away, Harun passed away, Yusha ibn Nun took over as the prophet, the official prophet of Bani Israel, and he led them back to accomplish what their forefathers refused to do when they refused to enter Bayt al-Maqdis and to Jerusalem. And they asked of their prophet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appoint for them a king to fight under. And so, the story goes on that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed for them a man by the name of Talut. And when they protested against Talut, they were not expecting Talut, who was an incredibly ordinary man. He didn't come from a high-ranking tribe. He wasn't considered to be of the bourgeoisie of Bani Israel. He was not considered to be wealthy. Most of those around him were more wealthy than he was. So Bani Israel, they were caught by surprise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed Talut. Why Talut? And they protested, and they said, نَحْنُ أَحَقُّ بِالْمُلْكِ مِنْهُ. We have more of a right to be kings than he does. وَلَمْ يُؤْتَ سَعَةً مِنَ الْمَالِ. And he was not given much wealth, because in their minds, this is what they imagine true kingship to be. So their prophet responded with the first response, and that is, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاهُ عَلَيْكُمْ. The reason is that Allah chose him. That's enough. But furthermore, and this is the curious part, furthermore, زَادَهُ بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ. That Allah has given him what is really important, not wealth or status, but what is really important for a leader is an excess of knowledge and physical strength. He was a very big man, big in an athletic way, powerful. Here's a question. Why does the king or the general or the guy leading and strategizing the army and the military, why does he need to be strong? And if he's strong in his body, this somehow is good for everybody else. Is he going out to fight them himself alone? Is his muscles are what going to win the war? The answer is no, obviously. So why is it important and a feature that this king not only has an addition of knowledge, but he is also very powerful in his body, physically strong? Why is that important for a leader? Why? Especially a leader going into war. Have we ever really thought about that? Most of the time, he's going to be controlling the army. He's not in the front. So what's the reason? Brother Uwais mentioned inspiration, meaning that when people look at him, they see someone as powerful and is kind of an icon for their military. That's correct. There's a number of reasons. But there's one reason I'm really looking for, more important than that. Anybody want to take a guess or kind of postulate why that would be?
Role model.
Huh?
Role model.
Yeah, sure, role model, but why does a role model have to be strong? How can we,
If sometimes like it needs, he can go himself. Without
Okay, if sometimes he's needed to fight, he could physically fight himself. Correct. I mean, all of these things are correct, really. The real main reason is because I want to ask you a question. A small, weak man in his body, he's very good. He's a lot of knowledge, but he's small and weak. How differently does he see the world than someone who is strong in his body, who's able to conquer the world? He knows. He has tried. He sees how people look at him. He knows what it's like to intimidate. He knows what it's like to win. He knows he understands the world is a place that can be conquered, correct? It's not really about how he's viewed. It's really about how he sees himself and how he sees the rest of the world. Remember Bilqis, the queen of Sheba, of Seba. We remember that story, right? What saved the people of Seba from Suleiman? When she asked her generals, what do you think we should do about this? They all said, they reverted, and they inclined towards what? Towards war. Why? Because naturally, men are not afraid of war, and they understand that there is a point of no return where no amount of talking, no amount of peace talks, no amount of ceasefires will help anything. There's a position that people get into where there's no way we can work this out with words, right? She was an outlier. She decided, no, let's send a gift to him, and she leaned more towards submission. And she was quick to submit to him because of what she feared that kings usually did. Now, she happened to be dealing with a prophet and a prophet of Allah, but what if she was dealing with a pharaoh? What would that reaction have garnered the people of Seba? Nothing but slavery, right? There's a difference. A person who is strong throughout his life, how he sees himself, how others see him, how he views the world is very different. And his experience up until that point of leadership is very different than someone who is weak or sickly or small or picked on or whatever it is. Correct? Very different people. So the point here that we're trying to take from this verse is that how people treat me is going to reflect how I see myself and how I see the world. It has an effect. It has a big effect. Now, I want you to think about this narration. Once, young man, little boy, please stop running.
Get out of here. Get out. Go outside. Go outside.
And so, there is a narration in which the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with some of the women of the companions, some of his companions of women. They were of relation to him. He was related to them, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like his wives and so forth. And a man named Abdullah ibn Maktoum. And he is one of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's mu'adhin, right? He was one of his two mu'adhineen in Medina. He came and wanted to, he requested to enter. And so they were sitting with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They didn't have their hijab on. And he is known for being what? What's a key feature of Abdullah ibn?
Blind.
He's blind. He's blind, right? So when he requested to enter, he told the women that were present, put on your hijab. Cover yourselves. And they said, he can't see us. He's blind. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded, but is it not so that you can see him? Putting on your hijab is not going to stop you from seeing other people. What does that mean? What that means is that we behave differently and we see ourselves differently and we hence treat ourselves differently based on what we are wearing, what we are saying, how we are walking. All of this affects us, the person. When I wear something, it affects me, right? Imagine this. This is kind of preposterous, but imagine this for a second. Imagine that I was a really rich man. I know it's kind of crazy, but imagine I was a really wealthy guy. I had millions of dollars. And I decided that my millions of dollars, they are the most dear and precious things. I'm so proud of this money that I made. I'm so proud. So I decided to go to the bank and cash all this money out and strap all of these bundles of money to my clothing. I strapped myself from head to toe with this money. And everywhere I go, in the subway, in the bus, go to Dunkin' Donuts, go to school, go wherever I go, I come to the masjid, I've got these bundles of money hanging off of my clothes, right? And everybody is just, when I walk by, they're staring at me, they're looking at it. Sometimes when I'm not looking, people will touch the money. Sometimes people will take a little bill from here and a bill from there. Let's say I did that for 10, 15 years. How much money would I have left? And in what shape would that money really be in? And how would I really be viewed? As a person who is intelligent and has a lot to give to the world, or a person who is pretty silly and thinks very lowly of himself? See, this is a point that many of us don't understand, and especially in our place and time and in our culture today, we don't understand the seriousness of how I conduct myself in public. You see people, they go to the store, they go out to the supermarket or whatever, they're dressed in pajamas. How could you go out into public dressed like that? When I was a kid, we were not allowed to wear short sleeves to go out into public, right? This was considered to be like, and subhanAllah, amongst my mashayikh, never one time will you ever see the sheikh or any of his students wearing a short sleeve thobe, ever. That's considered to be very inappropriate for a circle of knowledge. Why is that? It has an effect. The way that I carry myself, how I dress, how I present myself, what I allow of myself to be seen and consumed en masse has an effect on me before anyone else. That affects me first. I am the first person to be affected by that. And when I present myself in a way that, no, not everybody can have this. I have only the necessary amount for mass consumption, but everything else that is most important and most precious, it is hidden away. I keep it safe. I keep it locked away from prying eyes. I don't let people see it. I don't let people touch it. I don't let people come close to it. I build a safe and I put my money inside of it and I hide it and I bury it and I do all these things so that no one knows. And only very particular people are allowed to have that knowledge, let alone access to the things which are most important for me. This changes the way I conduct myself. And this changes the way that my soul, that I think of myself and what others think of me first. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us true shyness, true modesty. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the insight to see the truth for what it is and follow it, and grant us the insight to recognize falsehood for what it is, and the success and guidance to stay clear of it. Wallahu a'lam. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.